We're here with Nathan Edmondson, creator of Who is Jake Ellis and the upcoming Dancer. Thanks a lot for meeting with us.
Thank you.
So let's start with Who is Jake Ellis, because that has really kind of captured everyone by storm. In a nutshell, how would you tell someone about Who is Jake Ellis?
Who is Jake Ellis is it's a book about a mercenary spy. He's kind of the best of what he does, and the reason he's so good is not because of who he is, but it's because of who helps him, which is a man invisible to everyone except him, a man named Jake Ellis. Could be a figment of his imagination, imaginary friend. I mean, could be split psyche, he doesn't know. No one knows who Jake Ellis is. That's the question of the book. But when everyone in Europe seems to come after John, come after the spy, when something goes wrong, the only one who can protect him is Jake. So his identity becomes very important.
Where did this idea come from?
There's a street sign in Augusta, Georgia, my hometown. It's Jake Ellis Lane. And I'd driven by it a couple times. I just thought it was a great name. And I remember driving by one time thinking that it was a character name I wanted to use. And from then I thought, well, this should be really strong and sort of larger-than-life character. And I drove for about 2 hours to get home. By the time I was home, I had the story. So it's a street sign.
So Who is Jake Ellis was originally, 5 issues? And you left us kind of on a cliffhanger here. So I heard something about a sequel. Where is Jake Ellis? Is that what's being batted around now?
There is a sequel that we're working on. Obviously, it's going to come out. We've got my next releases are something different. But we're working on it, and we're extremely excited about it. But, it's funny, because even when I first conceived of Who is Jake Ellis, of the original story, there were all these questions I wanted to leave unanswered, and there were questions, I wanted to work through. And so I've talked with people about, even when I wasn't sure what I'd be doing with the sequel, I was talking to people and listening to the questions they wanted answered about Who is Jake Ellis, and I realized I'm going to be answering a lot of questions, but they're not going to be any of the ones that people are asking. So and part of what drives the series is that there is a mystery behind the characters. And if you give that away too much, then it becomes, it becomes like everything else.
So how far out do you have this story planned?
Well, I certainly have the next 5 issues planned, and I had those plans when when I first conceived of the series. I mean, I had an idea for a meta arc and where I wanted the characters to continue to go, but I've also, and partly because the chemistry with Tanchi Zanjic, the artist on the book, has been so good, I've allowed for a lot of organic, a lot of evolution in my ideas. So, I have a sort of vague destination in mind of where I want to get to at, say, the end of a 3rd episode. But, what's really important is sort of the chemistry between the characters, so writing that out.
Now, another one that you have out is The Activity. Tell us a little bit about The Activity.
The Activity is, I can say now after, after some evaluation, it's unlike anything else in the comics market, which is what we set out to do. And, it was sort of dangerous because we said, well, either this is going to do fantastic because it's unlike anything out there, or it's unlike anything out there because nothing like this will do well in comics, So fortunately, the bet has paid off, and now we're the story, The Activity takes place in the real world of the military. It sort of asks if there was a real Mission Impossible team. I mean, if that existed, what would it look like in the real U.S. Army? Well, there is an actual organization within the Special Operations Tribes. Under the SOCOM, Special Operations Command, under the JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, called the Intelligence Support Activity. They've gone by many names. They, in fact, change their name every 2 years. And what is fascinating about this group is that they're one of the remaining black groups that no one knows anything about. And they have a component called direct action. So with our book, these are the ass kickers. These are the first responders. They use the bleeding edge tech. They get in there, they get out. They're the lethal shadow. They're awesome. But everything that we're doing, and as we continue to do research, because we have advisors in the Special Operations Command, in the Special Forces community, we have all these advisors with whom we work. And every time we think we've pushed the limits of the fiction, we find out that it's not that fictional at all. We'll hear back like, no, that's kind of the way it works. And there's more of this going, and so it's pretty frightening sometimes. But the book is just this. It starts off in a very episodic way, mission after mission. They're in Rome, they're in Amsterdam, then they're in Kandahar, Afghanistan, then they're in Colombia, South America. That they. It's globe-trotting, and each mission has its own, there's a problem that this group has to go and solve, and it's lethal, and it's and it's edgy, and the group is a mixed gender group, which is something that's actually going on in Special Forces right now, that they're bringing in women to fill certain roles for a variety of reasons. So we're playing around with that aspect of it, and it's apolitical, but you get to see the way that politics come to bear in these communities. So Mitch Gerrits is the illustrator. He's doing just a kick-ass job of, nobody could do this series better than him. And part of it's because this is what he was born to draw. He'll say that before I will. He loves the material, and we both do. So this is our response to shows like The Unit, Strike Back, Mission Impossible, Act of Valor, and we do it in a way that only comics can offer. If this were done, it's prohibitively expensive for a TV show, but that hasn't stopped TV interest. But there are no holds barred when you're doing it in a comic. If you want to go to the South China Sea after you've just been in Ecuador, you can do it.
Why not?
Exactly. So the series is, it's wide, it's sparse, and we're just getting started. It's an ongoing series. So we're at issue 4 is out. Issue 5 comes out in a couple of weeks. We've already drawn the next couple of issues. I've written the next 12 issues. And we're having a blast with it.
Fantastic. Well, that's the way it should be with comics, isn't it? Now, another one you've got coming up soon is Dancer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Dancer is, for those who read Who is Jake Ellis and liked it, it's very much in that space. It's about a retired assassin living in Italy who has to protect his paramour, this ballerina named Quinn. He has to protect her from a sniper who starts stalking them through the streets of various European cities. But there's a big twist in the identity of the sniper and sort of how that comes into play with Alan, the retired assassin, into his past. And he's kept his past hidden, and now, that cloth he's kept bound up is coming unraveled. So Nick Klein is the artist on the book. I can, with shamelessly, I say that it's his best work of his career. It's just fantastic illustration, and we will have, I think, the whole series done before we release it. So on-time delivery is going to be an easy one with this. So
6 issues?
5 issues.
So I'm noticing a trend here. You've got, sort of someone on the run from, with a Black Ops type history, or, sort of spy versus spy, and Who is Jake Ellis. You've got the Activity, which is, like you said, the real cutting edge Black Ops stuff. And then you've got a retired, assassin, or, a retired person living. What's the appeal for you of this sort of, cloak and dagger type activity here?
Well, I get a lot of people asking, who kind of assume this is the only area I want to work in now, and I have several unannounced series that are very unrelated. One that's kind of a fantasy sci-fi thriller that's coming out, another that's like an action sci-fi that's, that are very much not Black Ops, not military. So, so my interest is not like centered around this, but it's something that it continues to strike, to strike all the notes that I'm interested in. It continues to, to play my tune. And the more I research into it, and the more people I, get to speak with who work in covert ops community, in the CIA, and intelligence work. I speak with these people, and I read stories and read these books, and every time I think of a new story. It's endless wealth of information and fodder for exciting storytelling. And it's something that's I don't see a lot of in comics either. And I think there are ways to use the comics medium to tell totally unique kinds of stories in these veins. So, I have no answer except that I've been inspired by these specific stories here and there. Now at the activity, I can sort of take so many different ideas that I have and put them all under the activity umbrella, because it is such, the arms are so wide on that series, and that gives me a great opportunity to, as I get all these different ideas, I don't have to keep telling a new book. I can just put them all into the activity, and that's what we do. And that's part of the value of that series for me as somebody who's pursuing research. But it's just, it's a world that's, guys at Tier 1 Special, Tier 1 Spec Ops, I mean, we're talking about Delta Force guys. These guys in the real world are the closest we'll ever see to actual superheroes. I mean, these guys have biofeedback where they can raise and lower they're trained to raise and lower their pulse so they can fire 2-mile sniper shots between the pulse beats in their thumb. These are guys, who in their selection and training hike with such, with 80-pound packs for 40 miles until literally the soles of their feet are rubbed off, some of them. These are guys of superhuman feats, and that's, I just have such an admiration for that, and not a warmongering admiration, but just an admiration for the fact that it's just a world that is so untouchable. I've never done anything like this, so there's a degree, I think, of hero worship there, but it's also it's just a world where the stakes are truly high. All the things you've ever written about or heard about, like this, in terms of the James Bond save the world, aspects of story. This is where it happens for real. These guys are literally saving the world sometimes, and we'll never ever hear about it. They are that whisper that stops 1,000 nukes. So it's fascinating to me that this world exists, and of course, the fact that it is black, that we can't, that it's all classified, top secret, we can't look into it, that just makes it all the more interesting, the rest of the world. You get the peek into the bedroom,
All right, well, thank you very much. Let's wrap this up the way we always do by asking you, what's your issue? What is that comic that you read that was so wild, so crazy, so out there, or so interesting that you find yourself talking to your friends about it?
Yeah, you said you were going to ask me this question. I was trying to think. I don't know that that's often what grabs me in comics, like the frenetic aspects of storytelling. I'm more often telling friends about stories like Pride of Baghdad, for the fact that it marries great art and great storytelling with significant meaning. One single issue that I might pull out of a bag.
Pride of Baghdad is, it doesn't have to be a single issue. Pride of Baghdad stands on its own so well. That was Brian K. Vaughan writing it, just the peak of his game right there.
Right. Yeah, and so maybe that's a good one to end on. There aren't a lot, I'm not the kind of type who's like, just look at this for the shock value. Look how crazy this is. I'm always more interested in kind of the substance of something, which is not to say that I don't thoroughly enjoy a little bit of crazy. But, let's stick with that one.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking time to meet with us, and all the best of luck to you.
Thank you.